Without that volcanic activity, we wouldn't have those sulfur springs bubbling. Well, geologists consider Mount Shasta to be a very dangerous high-threat volcano. And the quote is, someday it will wake up and erupt again, possibly during this century. So again, I'm hoping not, because, we may be a long way away from California. It could still do some damage over here.
Yeah.
Now, Mount Shasta has 7 glaciers on it that they've named: Whitney, Bolam, Hotlam, Wintom, Watkins, and Conwakiton, and Mud Creek.
They just gave up at the end.
Yeah.
Mud Creek.
Mud Creek. Well,
wait, shouldn't we kind of stick with this theme we're got to Mud Creek?
Yeah, call it Mud Creek. I like it. It's easier to say there. Now, Whitney Glacier is the longest, while Hotlam Glacier is the largest glacier in California. Now, Mount Shasta, you may not think you know Mount Shasta, but if you have seen pictures, you'll go, oh, yeah, that's it, because it's very famous for the lenticular clouds that form over the summit. Because of how high it sits, you get these lens-shaped clouds that form around the peak. So you may have seen a picture of Mount Shasta and not even been looking for it. You just pretty mountains, you know, and you see Mount Shasta.
There's probably like 25,000 people that have it as their computer wallpaper.
Yeah, exactly. So look at your wallpaper. If it's a big pointy mountain with lenticular clouds around it, that's Mount Shasta. Now, one thing we need to talk about, because we're talking about disappearances that happen around Mount Shasta, is climbing Mount Shasta. And climbing Shasta sounds naughty, so I'm just going to move on with saying that, and y'all can snicker to yourself every time I say climbing Shasta.
What I'm doing.
Yep.
Go right ahead.
So Mount Shasta is, supposedly not a difficult mountain to climb. It would be for me, because any mountain would be difficult for me to climb.
Man, there's a hill down the street from my house that I don't climb.
Right. You get winded going up halfway. I'm not climbing Mount Shasta. They say, though, that there are severe weather conditions that can occur year-round that will make it a little more difficult to climb. The usual climbing season is from early May through October. Climbers should be prepared for extreme weather conditions even in the summer. They say carry a rope, crampons, an ice axe, and be skilled in glacier travel, snow climbing, and they say know how to self-arrest after falling on a snow slope. So there are some dangerous spots in this climb. So keep that in mind when we talk about some of these disappearances and all that. They say, though, that a wilderness permit and a summit permit are required to climb Mount Shasta. So, I mean, if you need a permit to climb something, then I would say it's not a walk in the park.
Yeah. Yeah. You're not like just hiking up a trail. Hey, we're at the top of this mountain. It's a mountain.
Right. So, I mean, I've never climbed anything that I needed a permit to climb, and I don't think I'm going to start anytime soon.
Me either.
So, Mount Shasta is usually climbed by this 7-mile long John Muir route. It's 14 miles round trip, 7 up, 7 down. And it's also called the Avalanche Gulch route. So, again, not going to climb anything that has the word avalanche in it.
Right. Yeah, me either. I'm out.
Yep. But you end up gaining 7,362 feet in elevation when you do this. So it's 7,362 up and then back down. They say the absolute best time to climb is April through July, when snow is on much of the upper route. Because if the snow is melted, you've got to go through what is called scree slogging. And scree slogging is basically just climbing over a bunch of loose, rocks and boulders that have covered the side of a mountain. So, again, not fun to have to do that.
No. Well, you're convincing me more every minute that I'm not ever going to do this.
Right, exactly. And that's what I'm here to do.
Not that I was really thinking I was gonna.
Right. Well, I'm trying to paint this picture of it's not like a comfortable day in the park to go do this. And if you're around this area, you got to kind of think of some of this might translate into why people have disappeared.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the origin of the name Shasta is really unknown. Some people think it derives from a Russian word that means white. The local Karuk Indians called it, it's Uittaahkoo. So Uitaku, but it translates to White Mountain. Don't smirk at me, Matt. You couldn't say it either.
I wouldn't have tried.
Well, Mount Shasta straddles the territories of the Shasta, Wintu, Achuwami, the Otsugaway, and the Modoc tribes. And, you know, anything that has been... Most mountains have some kind of lore and legend to them from, you know, the native peoples that were around. Well, this is no different. So let's get into some of the legends and the lore. Well, northwestern California Native American tribes traditionally view Mount Shasta as being, you know, structurally and energetically connected to a wide range of these volcanic landscapes there. That it's not just a standalone, you know, it is a part of a system, basically. Mm-hmm. Well, it was considered a primordial spiritual connection that links all of these energetically powerful sites together. And that includes Mount Shasta, Lawson Peak, Lava Beds, Medicine Lake Highlands, Crater Lake, as well as a lot of other landmarks that you can see through there. And I think we've talked about Crater Lake in some episode we did.
Yeah, we have.
Well, for the ancient civilizations, Mount Shasta was on par historically with sites like the pyramids of Egypt, Stonehenge, the Mayan pyramids, and Machu Picchu. But it was considered to be even more of a spiritual place because it was, quote, creator-made. It wasn't a man-made temple. This was a creator-made temple. Native Americans have observed Mount Shasta as a sacred mountain from the beginning of time. They viewed the mountain and its surroundings as holy ground. It's thought to be one of the first earthly places that was actually created by the Great Spirit. So in the past, no one but medicine men or women climbed up the mountain beyond the tree line. They thought it was too powerful for just any ordinary person to visit because it was inhabited by a host of potentially dangerous spirits and guardians who could harm a person who traveled up the mountain that was unprepared, spiritually or mentally. So you weren't allowed to go up past a certain point if you weren't a medicine man in that tribe because they thought, well, you'll certainly die. And there's many stories that say the mountain is the, quote, sacred center of the universe. And in some stories, it is said to be the actual home of the creator, not just where that was not just something that was created by the Great Spirit, but the actual home of the Great Spirit, the creator. Mount Shasta's significance as a power spot for non-indigenous people didn't really begin until the 19th century, though. The naturalist John Muir described the mountain's peak as a religious icon, and he's the one that helped to spread the legendary fame of this mountain. You know, that's when it kind of went into more common knowledge rather than just indigenous people's knowledge. Now, in the 1930s, a businessman named Guy Ballard was hiking on the mountainside when he encountered a mysterious figure who claimed to be an ascended master. And we talked about ascended masters in our reincarnation episode. They're the people who have learned so much through their lifetime that they have kind of gotten out of this birth, death cycle that we're all in, and they have no need for it anymore because they've learned. They've moved past that. So the mountain is said to be home to these ascended masters. Well, the mountain is also considered one of the 7 sacred mountains of the world, and a Buddhist monastery was actually built there in 1971. It has become a site of meditation, holy temples, and shrines. It's believed to be the focal point of positive energy and a place that would help bring world peace to mankind. So there's a lot of a lot of people who believe this is a very spiritual and, a very positive place to be.
Well, I mean, it's a volcano. And for ancient people, volcanoes were much more of a mystery, but there was that wonder and power, the danger and the fear. I mean, everybody's heard stories about people getting pitched into a volcano once every so often to appease the god that lived in the mountain.
Right.
That kind of stuff. So yeah, there's always a lot of mystery and allure really to the volcano.
Right.
And, Shasta's no different, especially with the Native American population that was there.
Right. And we know nowadays that volcanoes, when they erupt and just during any seismic activity, they can create a magnetic field or a disturbance in the magnetic field around them. So if you are, some people are sensitive to changes in the magnetic field, then they might feel that because it's an active volcano, and they may feel like, oh, well, this is a place where, it resonates with me spiritually.
Yeah. I imagine dogs act pretty weird. Animals in general probably act strange at times around volcanoes.
Sure.
I don't know that for sure.
Well,
it would make sense. I mean, dogs sense the weather, and other animals do as well. So.
We do know that some wild animals will flee before a volcano starts, so they can either hear it going off or they feel those magnetic changes.
Mm-hmm.
Well, speaking of magnetic changes, let's get into a little bit of woo-woo that happens with this.
Woo-woo!
Yeah, buddy, woo-woo. So, with a place like this, there's always going to be some maybe wilder or stranger things that people believe or say about the place. Well, some believe that Mount Shasta is closely related to mysterious flying objects. So,
in general?
Yeah, it could be not really UFOs, but MFOs. Just mysterious.
Mysterious flying objects.
Yeah.
It looks like a lazy boy.
Yeah, well, it's flying. That's mysterious. So some have ventured to say that there are secret underground bases located inside this, quote, magical mountain.
Mm-hmm.
Which we hear about a lot of mountains, that there are underground bases or underground tunnels or whatnot, beneath the mountain. So it really doesn't surprise me that they say that about Mount Shasta.
Yeah, Smaug the dragon lives in there.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. Well, Mount Shasta has been identified by many, quote, experts as a spiritual and cosmic energy point, a landing area for UFOs, and even an entry point that leads into the fifth dimension, and as an access point to underground civilizations. In 1884, Frederick S. Oliver, writer and explorer, wrote a book entitled, quote, A Dweller on Two Planets, where he speaks of elaborate underground tunnels and rooms where the descendants of Atlanteans live.
Now, Oliver he's an interesting cat. This occurred to him when he was a teenager. So Oliver was helping his family mark boundaries around the mountain for their mining camp. But suddenly he began to shake and convulse, and it appeared that his hand was trying to write something. So he was obviously panicked, and he ran home, where his mother, seeing his hand, gave him a pencil and paper. Now, as the story goes, Oliver went into a trance-like state and began to write for several minutes. And these trance writings would recur over the next couple of years until finally it seemed like he had finished. Now, Oliver collected the writings, and that collection of writings was a book called The Existence of the Secret Lemurian City and Their History. I paused. I keep wanting to say Lumerian.
Yeah.
But it's Lemurian. And there's a reason why. It's Lemurian. But anyway, the book describes an ancient race of very intelligent beings that live within Mount Shasta. And these beings are our cousins, but they have evolved and advanced long before we became. Now, the name Lemurians, I told you, there's a reason. It references Lemuria, which is a hypothetical continent bridging the Indian Ocean, which would have explained the migration of lemurs from Madagascar to India.
Ah, okay.
Okay. Now, when I first read that, I was like, wait, what does something from India and Madagascar have to do with the Pacific Northwest?
Right.
Well, Lemuria, this continent, was supposedly submerged and no longer able to be seen. But by the late 19th century, theorists had developed this idea that people of this lost continent of Lemuria were highly advanced beings. And with the rise of the folklore, over time, it began to encompass the majority of the Pacific Ocean. So,
okay.
According to this lore, this continent was ginormous.
Yeah.
You know, and went all the way from India across the Pacific Ocean into North America.
Okay.
Oh, okay. But Oliver believed that these beings chose him to be their messenger, and he also claimed to have seen their crystal city, Telos, that lies deep within the mountain. He also said that he saw cigar-shaped airships, and these airships were capable of flying at incredibly fast speeds. Now, the book was groundbreaking for its time because it talks about quantum mechanics, anti-gravity, mass transit, zero-point energy, which Oliver described as dark side energy. But it wasn't until years later when people realized that Oliver, who again was only a teenager at the time, must have been some kind of genius, because in the late 19th century, quantum mechanics and anti-gravity was not something that a young man would have ever come across in his education.
No kidding.
Yeah. And you know, it is of interest that Oliver describes cigar-shaped airships, because this classic depiction of UFOs wasn't widely known until the 1940s and 50s.
Yeah.
Which is when the UFO phenomena really began. So it's interesting that, number one, like I said, that Oliver's writing about things that he should have no idea about.
Yeah.
Okay. And then he's writing about things that came about, 50 years later.
Mm-hmm.
So that is kind of curious as to why he would have used those descriptors, why he would have known about these things.
All right, Matt. So let's take a minute to talk about our sponsor this week, Care Of. Now, Care Of is a wellness brand that makes it easy to maintain your health goals with a customized vitamin plan that helps you feel your best today and supports you long term. Now, you got to make 2020 the year to prioritize you and commit to staying on top of your health. And instead of a laundry list of resolutions that you don't really end up sticking with, and we all do that, we make this laundry list of things that we're going to do and then we don't stick with it. Care Of can actually make taking your vitamins and supporting your health goals really attainable and really easy.
And Care Of makes your health easy by taking a short online quiz and answering some questions about your diet, your health goals, and lifestyle. Care Of will recommend a list of vitamins and supplements specifically for your health needs and goals. Now, vitamins can be confusing, and I think we all can appreciate standing in front of the rows and rows of vitamins in the pharmacy and going,
Oh, yeah.
What do I take? I don't even know where to begin. Care of makes it so much simpler by taking the online quiz and answering questions like, how much sleep do you get? How often do you work out? Do you follow any specialty diets? Are you concerned about your hair, skin, nails, or teeth? And their expert recommendations will fit your needs, and you can change or adjust them at any time. So what you receive is completely up to you. Now, Graveyard Tales listeners can take advantage of this offer for 50% off your first Care of order. Go to takecareof.com and enter the code GRAVE50. That's GRAVE 50.
Again, like Matt was saying, it's a great offer that they've got going on right now. You can get 50% off of your first Care of order, and it's real easy. All you got to do, go to takecareof.com and enter our code GRAVE50, GRAVE 50. It's rumored, and I could not find a account or anything that we can really verify this next thing, but I thought it was interesting to bring up, even though I can't fully verify it. I just wanted to let everybody know that I'm not claiming this actually happened. Don't send me emails. I won't read them. It's rumored that in 1931, there was a fierce wildfire that swept across Mount Shasta. Well, according to locals, the fire was stopped by a mysterious mist that came out of nowhere. The unusual fog created these, what they call linear demarcations of the fire, where you could see perfect lines around where the fire had curved in directions, going away from the central area of that mountain. So again, I can't verify that, but I thought it was kind of interesting.
It is cool. I found the same story. So.
I wish I could verify that, because it would be great to have a verified, pictures or something to say, yep, that actually happened. Well, Mount Shasta is also believed to be an energy supply base for extraterrestrial crafts. Now, they say that because there's an increasing number of sightings that have been reported in the area around this last decade, that they're coming in to draw energy from Mount Shasta. Well, the Hopi Indians actually have legends about a vast network of caves and a great city under Mount Shasta where the reptilian race lives. Now, many people believe that around Mount Shasta, the people that live around Mount Shasta, they have told stories about very tall humanoids appearing occasionally in some of the smaller towns around the base of Mount Shasta. And that's something that Matt and I really want to do, is a reptilians episode. So
maybe it's like where Slenderman is from.
Yeah, maybe.
Slenderman.
Yeah, Slenderman.
So, among all these other odd things, about 12 years ago, a strange hole appeared on the side of Mount Shasta, and it appeared to have been dug by hand and at night, with the diggers using a makeshift pulley system to remove the dirt. Now, the only clues that were left behind were a ladder, a few buckets, and a plastic water bottle. Now, a gentleman named Elijah Sullivan, who is a native of the town Mount Shasta, decided to make a documentary about what the diggers were looking for because of all the mysterious stories that come from Mount Shasta.
Right.
And he says that three main theories kind of stand out. Now, one, it was people actually looking for the lost city of Telos.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sure. Yeah.
Why not? But number two is that the diggers were searching for Native American artifacts. And we've already talked about, how important this was to the Native Americans. And there's history of looting for artifacts in the area around the mountain. And Native American artifacts can be quite valuable. However, Mount Shasta, as Adam mentioned earlier, is considered sacred ground to the Winnemem-Wintu tribe, and experts from the Forest Service say that any tools or ceremonial items that would have been of any monetary or historical value would have been packed up and not left behind by tribesmen.
Sure.
So, interestingly enough, I found this out. The fine for looting Native American artifacts is $20,000.
It's a butt ton. Don't do it.
Yeah. And it increases to $100,000 for the second offense.
Yeah.
Like anybody could afford to do this twice.
Yeah,
I mean,
no kidding.
They nail you once, you're done.
Yeah.
You know?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, sure.
And if you've already got that kind of scratch, what the hell are you doing trying to loot Native American artifacts?
Right.
But the third one, it was theorized that the diggers were amateur miners looking for gold. And the Forest Service also thinks that this is unlikely due to the fact that the volcanic geology of the mountain wouldn't make it ideal for the presence of gold. But despite all that, the area does have a history from the gold rush era. So some people did try.
Mm-hmm.
But nonetheless, Elijah Sullivan thinks this makes a pretty good mystery.
Oh, yeah.
Especially with the history of the mountain, So he's been investigating it for about the last, 10 or 12 years to see, what in the heck they were actually looking for.
So what you're telling me is this is a more modern day Oak Island thing.
Kinda.
Just
yeah.
a random hole, and somebody is investigating this random hole, and there might be treasure.
It was obvious somebody was looking for something.
Right.
We just don't know what.
Right.
So.
Well, among all those other things, Mount Shasta is also known for just a buttload of mysterious disappearances throughout history. And one of the most recent cases actually occurred in 2011 when a 6-year-old boy disappeared for about 5 hours while playing in the woods. Now, according to witnesses, the boy suddenly vanished from sight in a second and then reappeared 5 hours later as if nothing had ever happened.
Oh.
So, quite weird. He just there 1 second, next second gone, and then 5 hours later he shows back up. He's none the wiser, but they realize 5 hours have gone by.
Yeah. And if you think that sounds kind of like a missing 411, there's been
it does.
more than a few missing 411 cases around Mount Shasta. And some of these they're odd. Some of them have a paranormal quality to them.
Mm-hmm.
But it does seem like there's more than their fair share, more than what you would think a mountain that you could actually go and climb would have. And of course, a lot of these are going to be chalked up to, look, these were people that, went hiking. They decided they were going to climb the mountain. They didn't make it. They turned around and gave up and didn't tell nobody, found another way off the mountain and just went home. Because like Adam said, you do have to register and get a permit in order to do this.
Right. And that's why we talked about the weird weather phenomenon stuff is, because that's what a lot of people will say happened.
Right. This first one I found, which was not directly attributed to one of these mysterious disappearances, but I thought it was odd. On December 12th, 2018, Dennis Jewett, age 68, was reported missing by a neighbor. Now, Jewett lived in McLeod, which is a town about 12 miles east of Mount Shasta. And Jewett was last reported to have been seen on the 3rd of December, and search and rescue teams were dispatched. And after about 3 days, Jewett's body was found by search dogs. Now, the area where his body was found was described as being rugged and remote, and the weather conditions had not been favorable for hiking in this area. Now, during the missing persons investigation, Jewett's vehicles were located at his residence, and it appeared he likely just ventured away from his home on foot. Now, investigators found his home unsecured, and his dog was roaming in and out of the house. There were no obvious signs of a break-in, theft, or criminal assault at the residence, which led the investigators to search the woods nearby. Now, what would have caused Dennis Jewett to just take off like that? Autopsy revealed that he had died of natural causes. Taking the weather into consideration and the fact that it appeared he just walked away from his house, it seems unlikely that he had just planned to take a hike.
Right.
You know,
Go take a hike.
Take a hike, man. So when I found that story, I thought, well, that's really weird.
Yeah.
You know, and it's not been solved beyond that. It's just, you know, they don't know what happened. You know, he wandered off, and they found him in this area that he probably had no business being in.
Yep.
But they don't suspect any kind of foul play.
And that's going to be a common thread throughout this episode.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, 2 stories from 2011. Now, in 2011, a man went missing on the Pacific Crest Trail for several weeks. And after his disappearance, a huge party was dispatched, but they couldn't find any trace of him. So about 2 weeks later, this man returned and had this wild, outlandish story. The man said that while he was out hiking, he heard a woman singing, so he decided to go off the trail to find her. While he was looking for her, he said he must have blacked out, and he woke up a couple of hours later, completely naked and in an underground cave.
That's not normal.
No. Well, I don't know. No, it's not normal.
Depends on what he was drinking beforehand.
Yeah. If it was beer, not normal.
Not normal.
Jägermeister
normal.
happens every Thursday. So he says then he was approached by a very tall, beautiful woman with amazingly bright blue eyes. And he told police that this woman gave him secret information. And when he was asked what this information was, he wouldn't tell. That's the best way to keep it secret, guys. You don't tell.
Right. Stop telling people.
But after this event, this man changed his name to Lord Kalki, making many believe that this guy had suffered some type of mental breakdown on the mountain.
Sure.
But some think that he may have had an encounter with the mysterious Lemurians that we mentioned earlier.
Yep. And they made him a lord. He was knighted.
Yeah, that's right. I'm gonna go off somewhere and come back and change my name to Lord something.
Lord Matke.
Yeah. Oh, I can do better than that.
Can you though?
Maybe.
Yeah, we haven't proved that we're that creative.
Yeah, coming up with a name for myself after I've been gone for a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
I don't know. But another man in 2011 from Los Angeles was with a spiritual group of friends, and they decided that they would meditate high up on the mountain. Now, they started their trip on November 11th, and this guy, after taking his shoes off, hiked up on top of the mountain. He just wandered off.
No
thanks. It makes me think, my parents, to this day, they say the same thing. If you're going on a trip, they laugh because when we were kids, they always said, stay with your group.
Mm-hmm.
Now stay with your group.
Yep.
That's good advice.
Yeah, it really is. We even talked about that in our Missing 411 episode. Don't go out by yourself.
And don't be last in line either.
Exactly. That's why I'm always trudging through right at the very front, or I'm in the middle of the pack. I'm not hanging behind.
I don't be last.
No.
But he wanted to place a rock on the mountain summit. Now, after a while, a storm settled on the area, and despite efforts made, his body wasn't found until the very next day. Now, here's the weird part. The estimation was that he had traveled about 9,600 feet up the mountainside.
What?
Barefoot.
No.
And overnight.
Yeah, no.
Uh-uh.
That can't happen.
You don't do that.
Even running, you're not going to travel that distance at night barefoot.
No. Yeah, I mean, So the question is how did he get that far? Now, that is another commonality with a lot of these missing 411 cases is that people are found so far away from where they went missing that it just seems unexplainable, and they can't.
Right.
Either because they died or they have no recollection of events right up until before they went missing.
Mm-hmm.
But yet, I mean, we had a story on the missing 411 episode about a guy that, you know, he woke up 18 months later and he was like 700 miles from where he started.
Yep. Yeah.
And you're like, well, that's weird. You know?
Yeah.
But being able to travel that distance in that short amount of time seems impossible.
Right.
So let's talk. We brought it up. Let's touch on it again. The missing 411 stuff. And like I said, there, you know, we've got an entire show about this, but it keeps cropping up.
We're obsessed with this missing 411 stuff.
Oh, it's just amazing. Every time I hear, and it seems, you know, kind of weird, but every time I hear about missing hikers or anything, I immediately start reading that story, looking for the stuff that would make it a missing 411.
Oh, yeah, me too. Me too.
Now 99% of the time, you know, the people are found or something and it doesn't fit. It's not all that weird. There's a solid explanation for what happened.
Right.
But I always have a tendency to look and see, you know, is this another one of these weird ones?
Yep, just in case.
But this next one, Adam and I actually discussed in the Missing 411 episode. So I'm just going to hit the high points here. But for a more detailed version of this story, go find episode 29 at about the 1 hour mark.
Right.
And you'll hear Adam discuss this. But one day, a young boy and his grandmother were taking a nice little hike in the woods near Mount Shasta when all of a sudden, the grandmother just passed out. And when she woke up, her grandson was missing. Now, the young boy was found a couple of hours later,